Hello and welcome to the Presently Presents podcast. My name's Esme Todd and I'm the new guest host for the podcast. I'm a full-time freelance presenter myself and also a member of Presently as well. So it's really lovely to be here and hearing from different presenters about their journeys. So before we do get started with this episode, just a quick word about today's sponsor, which is Made in Kent Radio. So they're giving people the opportunity to record a professional radio demo for people who are brand new to the industry, as well as offering a chance for those who train with them to present a 1-hour show on the station and also some cover presenter shifts. It's a really, really cool opportunity if you are interested in getting into radio. If you are interested, they have offered very kindly an exclusive discount for Presently members using the discount code PRES10. So head to madeinkentradio.co.uk for more information.
Welcome to Presently Presents.
You don't need to have all the credits that I have. Trust me, you don't. You don't need to have been on all these things. Like, if you just seem an attractive prospect to somebody, or you have something about you, and your timing is perfect and precisely when they need it, you're off to the races. If you have a passion for whatever it is, gardening or cooking, travelling, languages, culture, archaeology, films, sport, or whatever the hell it is, if you have a passion and you have all those other things, then just do what makes you happy. And if it's working, if it starts to work, then crack on with it, like push on with it.
Today's Presently Presents guest is a TV and radio presenter who's built up an impressive collection of credits, including Saturday Mashup on CBBC, presenting on Capital FM, the football show on Sky Sports, Premier League Kickoff, and many more. He's interviewed almost every famous person you can think of, covering press junkets for various outputs, including ITV2's Entertainment Bulletin, FYI Daily, 5 Access on Channel 5 and On Demand Entertainment, and has become one of the UK's leading showbiz journalists. Today's Presently Presents guest is Jonny Nelson.
Hello! I feel like should be a little round of applause.
Yeah.
Just to give it that TV feel, if you will.
How did you feel about that intro, hearing that back? Was that kind of, did I cover the right things?
I mean, yeah, there's all stuff.
It's all
stuff
factual, yeah.
You've missed out. You missed out the really successful period of local television. I did hyperlocal TV in the Northwest, which really made waves in the
central
Lancashire area.
Tell me, was that your starting thing? Is that how you got into presenting?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, what was it called? Because I also started in local TV, so I'm curious as to whether it's the same one.
So this was before all the kind of local TV channels got that deal.
That slot.
From
was that
a few years
David
back.
Cameron, maybe?
Yes. So we were making it before that. Before
wow.
It was cool.
Okay.
Before there was any actual money in it, we made something called Lancashire One.
Lancashire
It was
One.
a website, like one of those just hyperlocal websites that covered local events and various things to go and see and do. But then we also tried being the main word there. We successfully made like cooking shows and little kind of chat shows. And we even made a teen drama at one point. But really, our bread and butter was the kind of out and about on the road, local events. Here's what's to see and do near you type thing. And we called it the Lancashire One Show.
I wonder where you got that name from.
Indeed, yeah. We had a real brainstorming session. We thought, what really says the one thing to do in Lancashire?
Yeah.
And it just came to me. So yeah, we did Lancashire One Show, and we went to like gravy wrestling and scarecrow festivals. And
so local TV, yeah.
Tractor pulls,
of course.
Which is when tractors race. They put big engines on them, they race, but there's like a big fork on the back from the start, so you're kind of racing to go slowly. It's weird.
Jonny, I'm from Somerset. This is all second nature to me. I know it.
There you go. And so I would be there just every weekend, just up and down the Northwest. And we put it all onto this website. Then we'd try and like sell the content out and get sponsorship for this, that and the other. And then we would buy slots on Sky TV. The channels in the arse end of nowhere. Channel 47612.
Yeah.
And then we would put the shows out like, on a Thursday night or over the weekend at like 7 p.m. and we have the Lancashire One show, or Ladies Who Lunch, or Tigger's Kitchen, or Freshers, which was our teen drama.
Oh, God, love it.
Absolute nightmare to film that. Pretty much bankrupted the company.
Good.
And yeah, various bits like that. And that's what I did for about 4 years. Like,
wow.
Really, it was a fair slog, like straight out of uni. And
so we're talking like you're 21, 22 kind of age?
Yeah. So
1970, what was it?
It was about 1972, yeah. The Berlin Wall hadn't come down yet, and
good.
the Cold War was still thriving.
Love that for us, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I graduated from uni back in 2010.
Okay. It's quite recent. It's recent days. It's only 13 years ago.
Yeah, it's basically yesterday.
And you went straight into this. What was your degree? What did you start off in?
So I did journalism.
Makes sense.
I focused on broadcast journalism.
Yeah.
And whilst I was there, I got an interview. Well, actually, my mate kind of bagged the interview with Jonathan Ross during the whole Saxgate scandal.
The what?
Saxgate. Do you remember Saxgate?
No, I don't.
Andrew Sachs, who played Manuel in the over 30s, again excited by the frothing that they've
I'm not there yet, Jonny. So I won't.
Andrew Sachs, who played an iconic character called Manuel in Fawlty Towers, had a daughter or granddaughter who Russell Brand had sexual intercourse with.
Oh, God.
And then
Let's keep it PG, Jonny.
To keep it PG, sexual intercourse, I believe it was consensual.
Oh, God.
They used the right pronouns and everything.
Yeah.
And then he went on Jonathan Ross's Radio 2 show. They were like having a laugh and a joke about it. And then they left a voicemail back then. They left a voicemail for Andrew Sachs.
Right.
Where they're both like, he shagged your granddaughter. It was very low hanging fruit. And then there was a big furore, and that's what meant Jonathan Ross had to leave the BBC.
Right. I do remember there being a scandal, but I was a bit young.
They called it the Saxgate scandal. And then during that period where he was off air, my mate Matt Scorer bagged an interview with him by just messaging someone on Facebook. It was ridiculous.
Easier days.
Indeed. And then we got this contact for their production company, and I gave them a shout towards the end of uni to try and get some work. So I came down to London, worked on Hot Sauce for just like a few weeks, and then came back up and worked in the radio as a broadcast journalist. And then, not an interesting story really, and interviewed these guys in local TV for this little profile about what they were doing, and they were like, fancy coming and working for us. And I was working in a pub at the same time as the radio, so I was pretty keen for
all sorts,
anything to get the hell out of there.
It's interesting because I did local TV as well, and it was Made Television. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I mean, I had meetings with Made.
You had meetings with, did you? What was that? Which channel was it back then?
So we were, when Cameron wanted to give this like license to local TV channels, we were asked if whether we wanted to do one for like Lancashire, because we'd been making local TV for years there. And then just pulled my headphones out, but I'll keep going.
Good, yeah.
And then
through.
I'm back in. It's seamless. Shouldn't have even mentioned it.
No.
And then we decided it was too much of an ask to kind of build a whole channel around what we were doing. We'd have to have quite a big outlay. So instead, we decided to make kind of local content around the country, to try and make content for these other companies. So I came down to London, we went to Solent, we went to Norwich, we went to bloody everywhere, and had meetings, and made TV with some of the guys, Irish guys were running it, I think. Yeah. And we went and we basically pitched them ideas for different shows. And the idea was we'd make AFPs, advertising fun of programming, and we would like make our local stuff in the Northwest, but then we would do these like packages, these features that made it kind of hyper local to each area. So we'd do a show about City Cottage, which is like a gardening show, all about being self-sustaining and that kind of thing. We had this lovely man called Paul Peacock who wrote for the Daily Mirror as Mr. Digwell. I know, God, this is
sometimes you can't write these things, can you? They're just so classic.
And so he was great. Sadly passed away now.
Oh, bless him.
And so we would make all these stuff like in allotments and these events and stuff with him. And then we would go to, let's say, Norwich, and we would do some features there. And then we would sell the whole programme to Made TV here or to whatever the hell they were called all over the place.
Yeah.
So we did that for a bit, and then it kind of...
Yeah, I mean, for context, because I know people who might listen to this, some people might be quite new to the presenting industry, so they might have no idea what we're talking about, because it doesn't really exist anymore. But back in day, there was a slot on the TV Guide, which was reserved, I think, by David Cameron in some sort of scheme for local TV output. And we're not talking like BBC Local News or ITV Local News. It was like its own thing. And it was very... It was very low budget, but like it was very low budget. But what it was good at is providing people straight out of uni, or if they hadn't gone to uni, like the opportunity to kind of get credits on TV, put together all these different shows, work on all the different stuff, kind of make mistakes, do all this sort of content.
It kind of, I mean, there used to be local TV, and a lot more local content by the BBC and ITV and various other, Granada and Tyne and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot more content back in the sort of 70s, early 80s. And a lot of the presenters who were big in like the 90s kind of came from original local TV where there was more money in it. And you still talk about it the same way, going, oh, go and make your mistakes, go and make your reputation, go and learn your craft. But there was still a lot more kind of going for it then than there was. It completely disappeared for a long time until... broadband and cheaper cameras allowed people to make more content of a relatively high quality. Yeah. And that's what we were doing in 2011, 12, 13. And then all these local TV channels kind of sprung from that. Have they all gone now? Are they still there?
So, there was my channel that I worked for was Made Television, and they had sort of 8 channels. It'd be like Made in Bristol, Made in
that's
Leeds, Made in. They had all different names. There was one called That's TV, wasn't there? That was the big other one.
TV,
they had That's Manchester.
Was Mustard one of them?
I don't know. There was, I feel like Nottingham had basically every city had their sort of had the option to have one. Some did it, some didn't. Some did it well, some did it worse. London Live is the big one.
Yes, London Live was probably one of the only places you could sustain one channel. Made TV had the right idea in a way. It's similar to what we were trying to do, but on a much larger scale of saying we can't really sustain a channel in just one town or one city. Yeah. But if we have Made and it's making stuff all over the country, you become a much bigger fish. Yeah. And you become much more attractive to advertisers. You put out a show and the same advertiser could be national, could be advertising on, 8 different channels, as you say.
Yeah. We had an evening show that was a bit like the sort of the one show come this morning type thing for the Bristol area. Did
you have a better name than ours was?
Ours was called The Crunch.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Sounds like breakfast cereal.
It does, doesn't it? So we always called The Crunch. I did the weather. We had all sort of live out and about it was all live, we had a whole dedicated news show. And the people who I worked with at the time, this was 2016, turning into 2017, they've all gone on to do really genuinely good stuff. Like half of them are sort of verified from different being journalists and different things. They are on different news, ITV News, The Independent, Sky News, but in front of the camera and behind the camera.
Really good breeding ground.
It was,
it teaches you, firstly, it teaches you a lot of the skills. It teaches you about hard work. It weeds out people who want to be presenters or are often journalists, and it's probably similar for musicians and artists and things like that. Those first few years, you have to do so much work for so little. You have to completely really forget about the idea of this time next year, I want to be this, there and everywhere. Because the people that do come out of uni and they are demanding a career and success, and they put a really hard 2 years into it, and they're like, oh, this isn't working, go get a different job. And it happened to a lot of people I knew. They just went and worked elsewhere because they were like, I want a holiday, I want a mortgage, I want a car, I want to sustain my life, I want career progression, and it was the people who were just willing to take those hits and, I don't know, just find something else in it. You're doing it for you rather than just for this idea of being famous.
Yeah, do you really want it, basically?
Exactly. And before you know, things do start to happen and you get opportunities here and then there, and they might be years apart, but you know, when you put it all together in a jigsaw, it creates a career, and I've been here for ages.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your previous question, I don't think they're all running in the same capacity as they were. I think there is some sort of output, but not. It's not like a TV channel anymore, from what I understand.
Right.
But anyway, you've been listening to Local TV. Where Are They Now? The latest podcast. Should we get back to talking about you, Jonny Nelson? And what you've been doing?
Let's go back to main TV. Tell me what went wrong.
A new chairman took over, and that's the tea. Anyway, okay. Let's get back to it before I have a choke. So you had all your sort of glory days in the local TV world. What would you say?
Ice cream van? Can you hear that?
Oh, I can.
There you go. It's miserable outside as well. I don't know why
who's getting it?
Fair play to him.
Well, sorry to stop you being able to get an ice cream or a
I would have been out there like a rat up a drain pipe. I've not bought an ice cream from an ice cream van for years.
Do you want us to stop filming? We can reschedule it if you want, and you can head out.
I'm just gonna look at him through the window.
A bit creepy there, Jonny. So what happened after local TV? What happened after you did all your local TV stuff? What would you say? What happened that got you into? Because you've done some big credits. We'll come on to those. What was the steps then?
Okay, so Steps were a pop band from about 2002.
I was really thinking, like, did you have a pop star moment yourself? I wasn't sure where this was going.
That's that local TV comedy coming out.
Yeah, it's the band. You can't replace it.
So I did local TV for a few years. Over that time, we tried to change the production company to something called Everyone Media. I still use the email address. So I was producing a lot more and trying to create more long form content. I was taking ideas to ITV and various other places. So I was just like getting on like that, but I started noticing a lot of people I gave working opportunities to in our production company would then go off and use those credits and start working for ITV and so and so. And I was like, shit, like I'm gonna live and die here. Like I'm not gonna be able to take that step because I've just got myself so entrenched in what I'm doing. And then an old lecturer of mine at the University of Central Lancashire, they gave me a shout and said one of their old students was like a casting director looking for people to do news round or something. So I had a chat with them, and we both agreed that news round wasn't like my cup of tea. To do just strictly news stuff wasn't.
Yeah, a bit too
really
serious maybe.
What I wanted to do. Yeah, and but then they just suggested at the age you're at now, I was like 24, I guess. 25 maybe, I don't know, one of those two. So I've already been
around your
mid-20s,
should we say?
The mid-20s.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you want a chance of presenting, you've got to take it a bit more seriously. And instead of seeing yourself as presenter, producer, director, this, that, and the other, try and just push the presenting a little bit. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? She's like, get yourself an agent, get one. It's like, I know a good one called Red 24 in the middle of London. They're like in the heart of it. You know, give them a shout. And they didn't actually put us in touch. And my old agency didn't even know who this person was. But then I just made my first show reel after years of presenting. Wrote this really long, desperate War and Peace email.
A plead.
Just went in like, I think I've waited too long. I'm sorry. It was very, very desperate. And then, I sent all this stuff off to this agency. They gave me a shout. They found it relatively endearing. My 7-minute show reel of me running around with scarecrows and stuff like that. And then, they took me on and things started to slowly change from there. They had some really good people at the agency. Vic Hope, who's done really well now. Later Anna Lee, who's been really big in sport. Chessie King, who's big online. Loads of people. Jules Breach, who's big on BT Sport, ended up there. And there was a bunch of us. Just put myself in their bracket, shouldn't really. And
the gang.
And just little bits that I started doing corporate gigs and stuff in London. I started working for like O2 and doing like bigger campaigns. I had to audition. Mm-hmm. And a few times I got 70, it was like 75 quid, which is cheaper than it is now, but still costly if you're skint. Train down to London from Preston.
So you were still living in Preston at this point?
Still living in Preston, but I was just down in London all the time to like audition for like gigs. And then I started to get them. And so I was working a bit more, and then I was always looking out for an opportunity at somewhere like ITN doing that ITV stuff. I always wondered how people did red carpets and junkets, because I was such a film buff throughout my life, like obsessed with it. I would always see these people and just like, how the hell did they get this gig? Half of them clearly don't even watch the films. And then at the time, Vic Hope was doing FYI. And she told me that there was a gig coming up because the person who did it full time, called Steph, was leaving. So I just applied for that, got down to the last two, and didn't get the gig. It went to my friend Mel, who's done it for years now.
She's still doing it now, right?
Freelancing, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I got to audition for her other job, which was this 2 days a week doing discovery education. Terrible money, but I got it. And then there was a big moment. I was living in Preston. I was producing at this production company. Not a lot of money, but at least it was regular, and I kind of knew where I stood. Suddenly I had an opportunity to move to London, but it would have been for the only guaranteed work is Monday and Tuesday. Not great money. And
it's a big risk, isn't it, to be fair?
The rest would just be, I'd have to find the work, through other presenting gigs, corporates, whatever other gigs I can get at ITM. But, at those times, you just gotta rate yourself, don't you? You just gotta go, am I good enough to do this? I'd been producing and presenting and writing and everything for years at this production company. I just thought, the odds are, like, it's not going to be as complicated as this.
Sometimes you just have to take a risk, I feel, don't you? Like, if you really, really want to try it. If you've got, it is obviously you don't want to be homeless, genuinely, like, if you're going to take this risk, but,
Especially if you don't have the like, some people are fortunate that they either come from a family that are involved in TV or film and whatnot, and it can give them all those contacts straight away. Or they just come from an upper middle class or a well-off family who can kind of support them through the rough times, or who just are based in one of those hubs. Back then it was just London, really. Yeah. Nowadays Manchester's great. There's more going on in Leeds. Pull my headphones out again. But
too excited.
I didn't have any of those things. So it was a bit of a risk, but I just thought, bollocks to it.
Yeah.
Moved to London, tripled my rent in like a day. And then just cracked on with this job. And whilst I was in ITN, I was just talking to people and just like, could I get some work here, work there? Do you need someone on this shoot? I'll work on the news desk. I'll log footage. I'll do whatever I need to do. And I did so many jobs. Any job that needed doing in that newsroom, I would do. And it was really, really hard. The discovery job, within the first few weeks, my boss was like, if you can't get up to speed on this job, I'm going to have to find someone else who can.
Oh, what a threat. I was
like, shit. Because he was a nice guy, but a bit of a job's worth, and he would micromanage. So I would put together all this news footage, present it, script it, edit it. He'd look at it and go, oh, I think we should change all this and change all that. And then I'd send it on to Discovery, and they'd be like, actually, can we change this? And eventually I just thought, screw it, I'm just going to start sending directly to them and ignore him. And they liked the stuff I was doing. It was him who was slowing me down. But anyway, I got up to speed, managed to crack on, and then that gave me the grounding in London over the course of a few years to kind of know I've got enough freelance work happening. Know I could pick up a shift here or there. And didn't mean I was presenting all the time. Sometimes it meant I was just writing news stories. Or there was even a text shift where you literally type out like news headline text messages, which would be sent to subscribers of a certain thing. I
Glamorous.
If that exists anymore. I know. But I did that, and then on the side, I would be able to audition for present something with present a new phone advert for BT or something like that, or an event, or host an award ceremony. I've missed out the radio in the middle of that.
Hang on, come on, let's get back. I was going to say, actually, it's funny that you had the advice earlier in your career to just focus on presenting and not do everything else, and yet when you moved to London, you had to do everything else to sustain. So it's kind of like you had to kind of ignore that advice. Do you think people need to do lots of different things, or not necessarily?
I think it's important to have a grounding in lots of different things, and not just to be successful at presenting. I think it's important because you need work. Like, unless you're supported by somebody, or you're happy to work in a bank or in Tesco's whilst making YouTube videos or something, you need, if you want to work in the industry, in the television industry or the media industry, it's best to know lots of different things and be able to do those things specifically. So like I write for The Independent now, and I can write something for them that's not presenting. Or I did a job at the start of last year for 3 months where I was editing all this like old footage for this random channel. And that was just literally just an edit job. But it was good money. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to earn some good money in the first, January, February, start of March.
Which is also quite a quiet time sometimes for presenting anyway, I find.
Completely. So if you have those skills and you have that experience, it gives you more longevity, and it means that when the presenting work dries up, which it always does for some time, might be a few weeks or months or whatever it might be, you have something to turn to that's not packing boxes or something. You have something else you can do in the same industry, and you don't know who you're going to meet or what you're going to learn by doing that, which might inspire or give you a leg up into the next gig or whatever it might be. So it's all about just sustaining. And it's what, YouTubers are good with it now because they've got to learn how to make their own content, which is useful enough. It's very different to TV, but it's useful enough to know the workings of, what's funny, what's entertaining, how should something be filmed, how have they edited this? All that is useful in TV. And yeah, that's why it was important for me. The radio, quickly, I actually forgot, that came up when I was in Preston. Through my old agent, they knew someone who was doing Capital FM or starting a new channel somewhere, a new station somewhere. I had done a lot of student radio in uni, but I hadn't done anything since then. And then, I just did a little pilot show for them, went down, and then they just gave me freelance work. So I would travel over to Wrexham quite a lot to do North West and North Wales. And then I moved down to London, and I was still doing that, but they didn't pay expenses. So my train fare, my hotel would cost more than I was getting paid to do the shows. But I would do it anyway.
It's because it's experience, right?
For experience. And it was good credit.
Yeah, really good credit.
But then there did come a time about, I don't know, a year into living in London where I got an opportunity to interview Robert De Niro. And I was supposed to be, it was on like a Friday night, or I think it was a Saturday. It's like, an interview with Robert De Niro, and I was supposed to be on Capital FM in the North that weekend. And I spoke to my producer, and he was like, mate, it's Robert De Niro. And it was a big turning point for me. So I backed out and did the interview instead. And I never did radio again.
That's funny, isn't it? Because people normally, once they get into radio, I feel like they really stick with it. But it's funny that you got in there and then
it
dropped
depends,
it.
really. I think if people who get into radio, if the opportunities come and you're doing it full time, I think you're just in there. And they offered me, someone left and went to another station. The guy I would cover a lot did breakfast, and they offered me drive time there. But I thought, do I want to move? I'm in London now. I'm finally doing it. I've got my foot on the ladder. I'm doing these interesting things. I'm making content for ITV2. I'm doing red carpets. I'm doing this, that, and the other. Do I want to now move to Wrexham and do this full time? And I just thought, it's not for me. And I didn't really enjoy radio as much as I would have liked to, because Capital FM is very marketing heavy, and it's very the kind of music they play, it's all very much like, hey, and now we've got the new Ellie Goulding.
It's
great.
quite like I always think it's quite announcery in a kind of way. It's not like a talky, chatty radio station as much as sort of like BBC Radio 1 might be, with like features and stuff.
Completely. And the kind of content they make and the music they play it wasn't entirely my vibe.
Too modern for you, too hip and young.
Too hip and young for me. So I had to work quite hard at it. The night before shows, I was like scripting out jokes and intros into certain things and things I was going to say about certain songs or artists. And I was having to do a lot of research about each one of those just so I had more familiarity with them. I remember when Ed Sheeran's album came out, and I said, and this is from Ed Sheeran's new album, X. And then my producer called me, and it's like, it's Multiply. I was like, all right, didn't know
Grandad
that.
Nelson over here.
I know. So it was just, I kind of left it behind and thought I'd come back to it one day. And then years later, I got another opportunity at Capital FM in London. And I went in, and it was a disaster. I was just like, I told them that I didn't enjoy doing it in the first place. And I was like...
That's always going to go down well.
Yeah. And I remember saying to them, I'd really love to... My mate Vic's on there, and I'd really love to do something with somebody, because it'd be a lot more fun. So basically I told them how I didn't want to do a show on my own. And then they were like, okay, well, do you want to record something? And I thought I was just in there for a meeting. And I was like, yeah, right then. Which you should never do as a presenter, by the way. My mate Layla taught me, if they don't give you time to prepare, demand time to prepare. Because if you're shit, that's the only thing they're going to take away from it. They're not going to think, oh, they did something off the cuff. They'll just think, that shit compared to this, and this other thing might be really well planned. But I've always been a seat of the pants type of guy, and I was just like, yeah, all right then, got enough. Yeah, got
Do you know what I think I would as well? I think I'd be like, all right, let's try. Because I think I'd panic that if I said, I'll come back another time.
They think you wouldn't get the opportunity.
Yeah, they wouldn't. It just wouldn't happen again. It's one of those things. You're in there, you might as well just go for it. I don't know.
But it's not always a good idea if it's not something you're doing all the time. So I'll present anything at the drop of a hat. But
you're not desperate though.
Not desperate though. A little bit desperate though. No, I just went, yeah, okay. And we went into a studio, and I was just like, I just started like ranting about stuff, and then I finished it, and I was like, oh, wow, that is bad. That is bad. That's some bad broadcast. And then left it there. I've never worked in radio since. So.
Oh, well, maybe that's not... But you are, your main thing is the sort of... on camera, let's say, TV and stuff like that. So
that's been my bread and butter, yeah.
Yeah, what would you say was your kind of... I don't know if you like this term, big break when it came to television work? What was the first thing where you really thought, like, oh my God, I'm like, something's happening here?
Really wanted to make a joke about Big Break from the 90s, the snooker show with Jim Davidson.
Well, thank God you didn't, hey?
The famous bigot. Thank God I didn't. Yeah. John Parrott was lovely, though. Anyway, that's for the over 40s.
Again, not me.
My big break, so to speak. I mean, I see the kind of ITN stuff was kind of my big break at the time. Because it seems a billion miles away from what I had been doing for years. And as a film fan, all I ever wanted to do was get to interview actors and talk about films and go to premieres and stuff like that. That was my big kind of dream as a kid. So the idea, I remember when I applied for that job, I remember like sitting in my room in Preston and just singing, imagine if I actually bloody got that. Imagine if I ended up doing that. Like, it just seemed crazy. And now I've been doing it for years, and it's an absolute pain in the arse most of the time. But I still remind myself that is the thing I set out to really want to do. The big break in most people's, again, depends on your perspective. I got a football gig, which was very important. The Premier League had their own like international output, and I hadn't done any kind of football programmes, but I'm a huge football fan. Preston North End fan for many years.
There'll be lots of fans listening, I'm sure.
All the Preston fans will be at the
they'll be
edge
here.
of their seat.
They'll be here.
So getting an opportunity there, I went, and I knew I'd just been doing entertainment stuff, and all these sports journalists were there kind of auditioning for the same things. And then I got this gig, and I was pitch side at Premier League games every week for like a season. I was like,
amazing, yeah.
Holy crap. And that got me a lot more football work. I got to travel all around the world because of that later on.
Because you're attached to quite a big brand, I suppose.
Because I was attached to the big brand, and when you're in it, you're sort of in it for a while. So I did the Premier League, and then I did a football show for Sky Sports. It was supposed to be on ITV, but it was supposed to be presented by Frank Lampard and Christine Blakely. She dropped out and was replaced by my mate Layla. Then he dropped out and was replaced by me. So ITV were like, it's not really our thing now. So on Sky Sports.
It's changed quite a lot.
But the football stuff was amazing as well. And that was a big break because it was my first live TV. Doing pitch side, going to games and having a lot more camera crew there and producers and stuff, and knowing that I've got a hard out and all that kind of thing. And that was a really, really good kind of grounding for me in like live TV and interviewing big names that are outside of films. And it, for the first time, I would have people's phone numbers. So if you're doing film junkets, you go and sit in a room, and here's the famous actor, here's the famous director. Whereas in sport, you do a bit of the wrangling yourself. So I started having all these like famous footballers' phone numbers who I'd be calling, going, all right, well, I'm going to be outside the Emirates in 10 minutes. Do you want to meet me there? So that was really a weird feeling.
Did that feel quite weird, like a bit sort of imposter syndrome-y, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I never really had imposter syndrome because I did local TV for so many years. I always felt like, honestly, the part of me, when I came to London after doing local TV for like 4 or 5 years, I was kind of like, yeah, I've paid my dues. Give me like I deserve an opportunity now. I've not just made a YouTube channel. I've not just like got rich parents or whatever. I'm not related to anyone.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd really like all my mates had like a holiday a year, or they had cars and mortgages, and I was earning like nothing doing all this stuff. So by the time it got round to it, I was like, yeah, fine. This is me coming home to roost. Utter nonsense, obviously. But then the big break that most people talk about was CBBC, which came about a year into the sport. My old agent called me and was like, CBBC have found your show reel on like YouTube.
Oh, wow, they found you as well.
They found me.
That's special.
They are making a Saturday morning show. They want to bring back live Saturday morning TV, like Live and Kicking, which I grew up with, SMTV Live, which I grew up with. Then there was like Ministry of Mayhem and Dick and Dom in the Bungalow.
Yeah, mine was Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, followed by TMI with Sam and Mark and Caroline Flack.
I know Sam and Mark now. I've got both their numbers.
Oh.
Like, they're friends of mine now, which is...
see that? He's rubbing shoulders with the big dogs.
With the greats. So I got a call and they were like, okay, they're finding show reel. Are you interested? And I was like, I don't really want to do kids TV. Because I've done so much local TV. And when you're doing local TV, all people ask you is, why don't you do kids TV? Because that's seen as like the starting point.
Yeah, it's like some people see it as like a good stepping stone before you get into. Yeah.
And I kind of thought, I've been doing this like nearly 10 years now, and I'm like, am I now gonna start? And you have to kind of get rid of that mindset as a presenter.
How old are you at this point?
At this point, I'm 28 or 29.
I only ask because I know that, you know, it's quite good to compare in terms of, I know people watch and they kind of think you haven't met things, you know, people think like how I need to be this age before I've got this break, and I don't think that necessarily is true.
To be honest here, there is YouTubers and TikTok stars and stuff often hit it big very young, and traditionally a lot of people in kids TV, like Sam and Mark, aren't much older than me. Genuinely, they're only like a couple of years older than me, and I went and met them, and they'd been in it for 10 years because all the Pop Idol and stuff like that, they were like 20. So it is a bit of it confuses you. And like I said, I went in, I was already like 28 or 29. So I looked young, and had a youthful exuberance about me, but I was like old to be starting that. But then, you know, I went for an audition and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go to the BBC audition, see what it's like. It'd be a good experience. Don't know if I really want it. Did the audition, had a laugh, left and didn't think any more of it. And then I got a call like, oh, they want to audition you again with somebody else.
Wow.
In the studio with Hacker. And I was
the famous dog that people... I mean, I'd be sad if someone doesn't know who Hacker is, but... Indeed. He is the famous dog puppet at CBBC.
He's done much better than I have.
Still there. Phil Fletcher.
And so I went and did this other audition, and then I met Yaz for the first time, Yasmin Evans, who's on like Heart now and did Capital Extra and has done loads of stuff really well. And yeah, we went in, we did this audition, and we walked out, and they were like, we're doing this audition with like a couple of pairs, and we didn't meet anyone, and we came out of the audition and went back to the hotel, and I was like, Yaz, bollocks to those pairs, we've got that job. I'm telling you right now, we've got that job. I don't even know if they really
Had you met the other pairs? Did you get to see the other people?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
So you had no idea if they'd done any better.
I heard of lots of other people. My producer told me of various different people who were considered for the job. Apparently, like later on, like Mo the comedian was up for it.
Oh, really?
Who's obviously flown. I think potentially. I can't remember. I think possibly my mate Vic was up for it as well.
Possibly, yeah.
Vic Hope, who's obviously flown. Basically, a bunch of people who've done far better.
Don't say that.
And we did that, and I was just like, we've got that bloody job, but I didn't know if I really wanted it. And then my agent called me a few days later, and I was like, visiting my mum and dad, and they were like, we're calling you because we've just found out you've got the job, but we know you don't know if you want it. So they want to call you to give you the news, but I wanted to call you first to make sure that you don't go,
no thanks.
Yeah. So they were like, just be happy,
pretend,
accept the job.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it afterwards. So that's what I did. And they had this group call, and they're like, we want to give you the job of Saturday morning TV. And I was like,
way. Did you burst into tears, do all the sort of classic?
I didn't go too over the top, but I was just like, oh, that sounds really good, really excited. And then I had to go have a sit down meeting with my agents at the time and talk about the pros and cons, because I lost all my jobs at the football. which was like a year-long contract, money all the time, good money, lost it because I had to take 3 months off to do this kids show. I lost like loads of work to go to CBBC, and it was just this gamble we took. We're like, at the end of the day, this is BBC Two and CBBC channel, and it's getting you in the BBC, and it's, you know, you grew up watching these shows, and this is such a unique opportunity that is only going to come once in your life.
I mean, not many people can, it's such a sort of small club that can say, I presented CBBC Saturday morning TV. It's such a like unique club, isn't it? So it's
and
quite
when you're
cool.
in there, yeah. And like the weirdest moment was, the most surreal moment was the morning of the first show. And it was the first time we did press for anything. Like, it's the first time I was interviewed by like radio stations and stuff.
Oh, you're saying I'm not your first one, Jonny?
Well, no, sadly not.
Gutted.
Sadly not. But the best one.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
But prior to the show, we were interviewed by like radio channels. We went on BBC Breakfast, and we were in The Guardian. We had this 2-page spread in The Guardian with us and all this cereal falling down and all these like weird, bonkers things. And then the morning of the first show, we were doing rehearsal, and I got a message from Jamie Theakston, who presented Live and Kicking when I was a kid. The big show.
He does Heart Breakfast, doesn't he now?
He does Heart Breakfast now, and he DM'd me on like Instagram, and he was like, "Mate, just like enjoy the ride." And I was like,
"What's going on?
Holy shit! Yeah. What is this?" And yeah, so that was kind of big break, but at the same time, it balances out because it took me out of sport in a big way, which, you know, has meant subsequently it's harder for me to get good sporting jobs now, because you step out, you're replaced by the people waiting in the wings, and that's just the fact of working in presenting. You've got people there who want to do the thing you're doing, and the second you're not available to do that thing anymore, and someone else comes in and does well, it's a job off your hands.
You were riding the sort of sporting peak. You were going up and up and up. You had to jump onto a different sort of train to get up to the CBC peak. Went really high, but then carry on.
Yeah. And I think that's when I was at CBBC, I did a load of things that, you know, currently dreamt of. You know, I was on Blue Peter. I have a bunch of Blue Peter badges, and
it's insane the sort of stuff, the opportunities you get from doing
completely
kids
HQ and like the Broom Cupboard and doing all these iconic things and Children in Need and all this kind of stuff. But when you're doing something like that, you are very aware, especially me at the age I was doing it. I was very aware of and the changes being made, like how YouTube and TikTok and things like that were becoming so big, and they were trying to find a way to incorporate that into CBBC, which is a very traditional thing. So already, you know, new presenters were coming in, and it'd be like, oh, this new presenter you're working with today has 800,000 followers, and you're like, shit. And you kind of know that you're on borrowed time, at least in that moment you were, unless you get on Strictly or something like that. So there's an element of that, but it's one of those kind of whirlwinds. You just enjoy it while you can, get as much experience as you can. It's an incredible experience.
How many seasons of mashup did you do? Was it 2 or 1?
Just did 2.
Yeah,
did 2 series of mashups with 2 blocks of summer specials at the festival, BBC Summer Social. I did loads of other kind of CBBC shows in between that, like the Blue Peters and these like quiz shows and all this kind of stuff, and Sam and Mark's was it Big Friday Wind Up, and all these other things that were just bonkers. Big studio audiences, getting slimed, doing like assault courses, winning people prizes, like eating bugs, getting covered in custard, dressing up, putting on accents, wearing wigs, and all of this utter crazy nonsense that goes on. It's the sort of
memories you'll have when you're sort of 80 and you're in your retirement home, and you'll be sort of boring the other residents with, do you know what I used to do back in the day? That
exactly.
Sort of thing.
I mean, I do that already. Don't even need to be in the retirement home. I mean, half the kind of celebrities I see on TV now, because a lot of my friends like went on Strictly or all these kind of different shows. A lot of people I see on TV, I'm like, I've gunged them, or they've gunged me, or that pussycat doll has pied me in the face, and all these kind of things. And it is bonkers, and a good grounding. And then after that, it sort of was like lockdown happened. We left. Me and Yaz left the show.
You left it,
kind of. Yeah, so we were gonna do another third series, and then we got a call one day, and they said, "Oh, Hacker doesn't want to do it. Phil doesn't want to do it again anymore." So they're gonna like revamp everything, and just everything went. So new presenters, new puppets, new studio. They filmed it in Glasgow instead of Manchester.
Yeah.
So it all kind of changed, and we were just like, "All right, I guess that phase of my life is over then."
How did you feel about that? Was it quite? Were you kind of ready to move on, or were you kind of still in it? Because I feel like with CBBC, people either do it for ages, Sam and Mark, or Dick and Dom, or I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, or even on HQ right now. That Reese has been doing HQ for a long. Reese Stevenson's been doing it for a long old time at the moment.
Yeah, he was there when we were there.
It's been a good while. For example, people like that who just really just love it, they do it, and that's it. Or you have the people who kind of, you can see it's more strategic, where they come in, they do their year or 2 or 3, and then they're on the one show and they're doing kind of those bits. You know what I mean? They have that kind of obvious BBC progression.
It really depends. A lot of it in presenting and at the BBC is kind of down to elements of just luck and serendipity. You think from the outside that the BBC is like Man City or Man United, and then ITV is like Chelsea, and like they're all like big dogs in the same league kind of thing. When in reality, the BBC is like the Premier League, and every single facet and area of the BBC is like a different club with different people, different management, different ideas, are not connected. So you go in there thinking, oh, I'll be on the one show next, and then I'll be doing Country File, and then I'll be doing Match of the Day, and then I'll be doing this. None of these people know or care about each other. You might as well be saying, oh, I'm going to go do this at the BBC, and next thing I'm going to go do Al Jazeera, and then I'm going to go work in Turkey in a bus stop. Like, it's so all over the place that the idea of like, oh, now I'm on a different ladder, it just goes out the window. And that's how you get very different kind of people. Like Reese loves kids TV.
Yeah,
it's ready made,
and he's perfect for it. I know he does do some other bits. I'm not saying that he doesn't.
Absolutely, but like that is a great passion of his is communicating in that way. Then you get people like who else am I? So you got people like Lauren
Layfield.
Lauren Layfield, she's great at kids TV, but then kind of going into Capital, and then there was like a slightly different like edge to her, which can work in other areas. Thistleton was perfect for kind of the mid-morning BBC show. They've
Radio
got
1.
there at the moment. You get people, and again went on Radio 1. The kind of different kind of personalities that work, that can go in different directions. But if someone loves kids TV and is really well suited to it, then it's kind of like, why leave unless something else comes up? So that's why Reese did this huge thing with Strictly, but it's like, I like doing kids TV. So
that's the funny thing. When Reese did Strictly, you kind of expect him to be like, right, bye HQ, I'm going to go. But he hasn't. He's just carried on because he obviously loves it.
Karim was the same. He came back and did kids TV again, and then sort of edged into other things.
He's an actor though, as well, isn't he?
He was an actor. Yeah, he was an actor first, and then into that.
So
a lot of people do
go on.
sport. A lot of people do sport afterwards, and one way. A lot of people go from CBBC and then into sport. It's what like Richie has done now, Richie Driss. But because I went from sport into kids TV, I think I came out of it and I was like, should I do something else now? Or like, it just makes things a little bit more complicated. But I've been lucky that I've been able to do all sorts of different things since then, and a lot of the same stuff I was doing beforehand. And I don't know, like when you're still doing stuff you love, you can't really complain too much about it.
Yeah, I would love to do CBBC myself. That's what I want to do, but I've self-taped for Blue Peter. Do you know what? I was requested from CBBC to do mashup self-tapes as well. I was coming after your job, cool. Jonny. Didn't get it.
Nice.
I haven't got it, as I'm still.
You would have been great on it.
I'd have loved to do it. I did the self-tape, but anyway. So that's all your sort of CB stuff, and we've talked about. I guess that was your kind of peak of doing all this sort of kids TV and that. What would you say? Let's just bring it all back down. What would you say is the hardest thing about being a presenter?
The hardest thing is security or lack thereof. Again, if you a lot of people who want to work in TV go to work in like a mate of mine called Satima, who's now working at ITN. She's a great presenter. I did a crime show with her recently. and she's really, really natural. And she does a lot of kind of TikToks about like advising people of what kind of stuff to watch because she watches everything. She's really good. She's got as much sort of talent presenting wise, I feel, as a lot of presenters I've met. But she went down for security reasons, I guess, and to stay in the game. She worked on in like development for a long time, and she still does that now. And it's great because it means you can progress and you're still on in that world, and opportunities can come up like this show we did recently together. But it also kind of you can feel like you're out of the game. You know, it can, you know, few and far between the kind of presenting gigs you do. So if you want to concentrate on talking and trying to be predominantly a presenter, so hard to have security. I had the most financial security I ever had working in sport loads, and I gave it all up to do CBBC. And then I left CBBC, and it was like, okay, now what is my grounding here? What is next? What do I do? And there's always that element, no matter how successful you can feel or how well things are going, someone can pull the rug from under your feet, and you can be counting the months down for when you're gonna like run out of money. And I think that's the hardest thing. You can say like the rejection, which comes, you know, you're gonna email a lot of people, call a lot of people, have lots of different meetings, have lots of different people saying, oh, we'd like you to do this, that, and the other, and nothing come of it. But to be honest with you, if you don't get used to that in the first like year of presenting, then you'll never make it. You need to just accept it's a lot of throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. So that I wouldn't say the hardest thing is that. It's definitely just the lack of security and planning. But if things are going well, you've given yourself a good grounding, you've got yourself lots of good credits, you know lots of people, and you know you can do lots of different jobs, you kind of get used to that. I've been freelancing since I left uni. I've been freelancing for like 12, 13 years.
Wow. It's a long time.
I'm still here, and I don't
still going
here about like, oh God, how am I going to pay my taxes and stuff? Because I know that stuff comes because I'm good at what I do, and opportunities do come your way. It's just having that self-belief, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of like, you know, you mentioned earlier you were with Red 24. You're not with them anymore. They're still about, aren't they, Red 24? Or no?
Say again. It just like cut off a little bit.
Red 24, the agency. You were with them, weren't you, back in the day? Do they still exist as an agency now? They're still going? No.
Sadly, not. So they were an amazing. Honestly, they were an amazing. Frankie Vu was there. He's done like How.
Lovely guy. Lovely guy.
I mean, everyone was bloody lovely. Like it was just. Sean Welby was there. He's at Capital now and has done loads of like. The bed of talent in this small agency was strong, and Vic Hope obviously, and like it was a really good agency. What happened with them, I don't want to go into too much detail about their personal stuff, but it was predominantly run by two people who were good friends of mine, lovely salty earth people, and one of them sadly his parents had some health issues, and then that coincided with the other one also whose a parent had some quite severe health issues, but it was like elongated over like a kind of year, and a lot of things were happening in my career and some other people's careers, and it felt like there wasn't enough time to put into it. And then I got approached by another agency who I turned down, Money Management, my now former agents.
So you turned them down, but then you were later with them anyway?
Yeah, so about a year later, about a year into CBBC, when it felt like stuff wasn't happening the way it was happening for some people I knew, I went back to them. I was like, okay, let's talk about what we can do.
Came crawling back.
Yeah, and they were lovely people, but absolutely fucking useless, like for me. So it just shows.
Sorry, Money Management, if you're listening.
Yeah, again, lovely people, and I think they would admit that just like they didn't quite know. Some agents are really well suited to certain people, and vice versa, and sometimes like. It just works. Someone knows how to sell somebody. Somebody knows what to do with somebody, and I think me and those guys, as much as we got on, we're not in sync in that way. So I was there for a few years, and eventually we had a chat, and we were just like, God. And since I left them, I went completely like off my own back and earned a lot more money in the last year than I did working with them. So
wow, so you're not represented now?
No, I left it. I'm not against the idea. I think one day I'll get another agent again. And I had a chat with a few people, but nothing really felt right, kind of thing. So at the same time, in terms of advice for getting agents, they are really important.
I was going to say, what do you think? Do you think having now I know you've done agency and non-agency. Do you which way do you swing more? And do you think that having an agent is the be all and end all, or no?
Having an agent is not the be all and end all, but it can be a game changer. It can be a life changer. My first agency was so perfectly in sync with what I wanted to do. They were an up and coming young agency, hungry, getting opportunities. And I was an up and coming young presenter, hungry, looking for opportunities. And anything they wanted me to do a vlog about this, do that, do this, I would do. And they were just at it. And it changed my life. It got me to London. It got me on ITN. It got me in football. It got me at the Premier League. CBBC may have found my show reel online, but like all these things came from this agency. But then what I learned in the agency after, who were had much better connections in a way at a higher end of TV and stuff. A lot of big acts were there, like Nick Grimshaw and all these kind of Rick Edwards and Edith Bowman and all these people I greatly respect. For someone like me, just weren't a good fit at all. You know, if they're trying to put your name forward for being on, 8 out of 10 Cats or something like that, you're never going to do it. But if that's their idea, if that kind of area is their only idea, let's put them forward for all these things they're not going to get. It's kind of like, how are you going to build somebody up? So I think finding the right agent is so important. Don't be one in 100 million people that are on their books. Don't be the shittest, least famous, least Instagram followers person on their books. Like, be with somebody who is hungry to make a name for themselves as much as make your name. And then what I learned is it's not the be all and end all. Again, a lot of YouTubers and people like that, or journalists or jobbing presenters, you build up your own connections, producers you've worked with, channels you've worked with, radio stations, presenters, whatever it is. And things can get done a lot faster on your own. You can get paid more.
Because you're taking control. I mean, I suppose no one's going to care about your career as much as you do, first of all. And second of all, if you're in control, if you've got that middleman who's going after the stuff for you, you don't know what they've said about you, you don't know how much they've said, you don't know how much they're pushing, whereas if it's you in your hands, I suppose you can know how much you're emailing and how much you're contacting
Completely. It's actually it's kind of demoralising when you go a length of time and nothing happens, and you're not in control of it, and there's moments when you think, like, what is being done? But then at least if it's you know what you're doing and what you're not doing, and you can say, okay, well, I've done this, and you can have your push at certain people or certain areas on your own terms. Like once a year, I'm going to message these people to try and catch up and let them know what I've been doing. This is who I'm talking to at this moment in time. I remember my old agent sent me, I asked for my my deck, like a Canva, a deck with all your kind of credits and bits of stuff on. And they sent it me, and it was just, it was shite. It was like, it looked about 20 years old, and it had like nothing on it. And I remember just going, is this what they're sending to people? Is this my shop windows? I made my own.
Was it all your local TV stuff? Front and centre?
But it was just like a black screen and a picture of me, and it said like, Saturday mashup and the Premier League, and it was just nothing. There was no personality in it, and you have to know how you want to sell yourself. So I think, I'm comfortable without an agent at the moment, and I think the only agent would be worthwhile is if somebody who had a real vision of what they wanted to do, or if I got another higher profile gig, and then you're suddenly in a different world, and some other big agency or whatever can put you forward for X, Y, and Z. But there's pointless doing that if you're in a certain area, because you just become part of the noise.
Would you say you're good at networking as a person? And also, I suppose, with your credits that you do have, do you find it's easier to get those meetings with people because they kind of go, oh, all right, who's this then?
To be honest, it could be hit and miss. You'd be surprised at times. Like, you still get ignored just as much. There are moments when I'm like, okay, I really want to push this, that, and the other, and contact all these people, and say absolutely fuck all back, nothing. You just have to get used to it. You can put all this effort into it. adding people on LinkedIn and sending messages about this, that, and the other, name dropping and all that kind of stuff. And you can hear nothing because you're in the spam, or you're just one of 400 emails this person's getting at that time. And it's all about timing. If that person's not looking for someone at that moment and you don't drop on their desk at that precise moment, you can be just out with the noise. And that's a frustrating thing about the career path, but also the exciting thing about it is that you don't need to have all the credits that I have. Trust me, you don't. You don't need to have been on all these things. Like, if you just seem an attractive prospect to somebody, or you have something about you, and your timing is perfect and precisely when they need it, you're off to the races. And it's why people shouldn't get disheartened about getting older or having not enough experience or too much or whatever it is. I could call someone in 10 years and they could just be like, oh, we're making this show and actually we're looking for someone different and you've got this experience, and I could suddenly be doing something I'd be really excited about in 10 years. That's the beauty of it. You've just got to, you've just got to know that and keep kind of like plodding forward and keep enjoying the things that you do. At the moment, I'm doing a show on Channel 5, which I used to freelance little bits on every now and again. Now I'm doing it like all the time, and it's like I write funny little scripts that just entertain me and say really offensive things about films and trailers, and I put that out and it's out every week, and I'm interviewing people all the time, and I love that. That's what I got into it for. And if I suddenly fall on my feet and start presenting the one show in like 5 years' time, then that'd be great as well. But
well, in terms of 5 years' time, one of my questions was going to be, what would you love to, if you could, this is your pitch to the producers out there, if you could be doing anything within 5 years, what would it be? What would you like to be doing?
I'd like to be dead and buried. I've had enough.
Keep it light, Jonny. Come on now.
5 years time, I don't know. It's one of those things. People ask you this all the time, and every time you're meeting in TV with a new producer or an agent or whatever it is, they're like, "Where do you want to be in 5 years' time?" And what they want you to say is, "Okay, I've got this really clear plan. I'm going to do this. I'm going for it. I'm going to do this, then this, then this, and this is where I want to be." And that's what people want to hear. And I find that so irritating because it's just not. It's not realistic.
Apologies, sorry.
I find it so not the question that you're asking me now. I find it more like when like a big TV producer or an agent or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what they want to hear.
Yeah, you know them. There's a sort of catch that. Yeah.
And half the time people are talking about their 5 year plans. They are utterly delusional. But I suppose you need to be a little bit delusional to kind of fire yourself forward. So for me, I always say, like, I want to make some documentary now. I've been a journalist for years and years. I work for the one of Europe's largest production companies in journalism, and I think it's about time I start to kind of stretch that muscle a little bit. So I want to get into documentary. I want to keep writing. I want to write more. I write a lot of short form content at the moment. I'd like to write some more long form content. Whether that's writing a show or whether that's writing, kind of half tempted to like write a play or something.
Wow.
At some point. But I don't know. I think I just got to start and see where it goes.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, at the same time, I want to do the things that I've already done and do the things that I'm already doing. I want to do more of it. I want to do it better. I want more people to see it. I want it to be more opinionated. I want to interview more actors and directors I've not interviewed before.
Do you love doing all the? I mean, that's your main thing is, I guess, the showbiz reporting at the moment. Do you love it? Is that something that you kind of fell into? Is it something that you've always kind of planned to do?
That's something I've always planned to do. I don't like the idea of showbiz. I couldn't give a toss about showbiz. I hate Love Island. I hate reality television. I don't care about who's dating who or who's got new teeth. I don't care who's pregnant. I don't care about the Kardashians. I don't care about any of it. But film and television and comedy and drama and stories and performances and art in that way, that is I am obsessed with that. I could sit and watch 5 movies back to back right now. I would sit there with my 12 coffees and just like, that is dreamland to me. So to be able to be in this world for the many years that I've been in it, and hopefully the many years still to come, I don't see myself as being a film critic of like a broadsheet newspaper where you overanalyze every film and you basically destroy every film and like, oh well, he's trying to do this, but it's very derivative of like Scorsese, and it's like, fuck off, not for me. I just want to like enjoy it. And the most slated I've ever been for anything I've ever done was some interviews for an Alien movie with Ridley Scott and Michael Fassbender, and I was so bloody excited to be there. That in all my interviews, I'm just like this all the way through, and people do not like that. And I got slated on like YouTube, so much so that somebody started trolling me on Twitter with all the horrible things people said. And I was like, you know what? I don't care, because you got to love what you're doing. And I want to do that for as long as humanly possible. Sport and stuff, do some football again and get into all this. And there's a million different things I'd like to do over the course of the next like 20, 30 years or so. But
keep your eyes peeled, basically.
Yeah, but that's the entertainment, the film and TV and stuff is, do that until I'm dead in the ground.
Favourite person you've interviewed? Just one? Is that hard?
The answer I always have for this, I don't know if it's even true, but it's the one that always springs to mind. Because I've interviewed lots of cool people. Dwayne Johnson was cool. I was a big wrestling fan as a kid. Robert De Niro, because I love movies. Really liked James McAvoy because I used to watch him in this thing called Early Doors, and then Shameless, and then Start for 10, and all these. There's various people like that who like have impacted you in a certain way. Right, I like Taika Waititi. Loved his movies, watched them in uni. But maybe my favourite in films was Bill Nye.
Oh, okay.
Because we started talking about Preston North End. Because he was like, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Preston." He was like, "Oh, great football team." I was like, "Bill?" Naming
Don't say this to me.
He knew David Beckham played on loan at Preston North End in 1994. He knew that David Moyes was our manager, who's now gone on and done really well.
Was he the supporter or no?
No,
not that far.
He supports Crystal Palace. He just loves football, and I just felt so excited about the fact anyone just brings up Preston North End. I suppose that means no matter who they are, how famous they are, all you need to do is talk about this shitty place I come from, and I will light up. So maybe he would be right up there, and then like Will Ferrell and people like that are always super lovely.
And lastly, without naming names, have you ever had a terrible situation interviewing someone? You don't have to name them, but have you just had a really kind of horror story, or has it always been a bit fine?
Yeah, I'm going to name him.
Oh, go on.
So usually you're fine, unless you mess up, or you can come on too strong or just say the wrong thing, and I get that. So I don't hold grudges against anyone. I actually really like Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. Really like him as an actor, and I've interviewed him like maybe three or four times over the years. But it usually takes him a while to warm to me. I remember I said some really nice things about a film he did, and he liked it. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm going to stop blowing smoke up your ass now." But I could tell that he was a bit like, "Oh, why did you say that?" And then I tried to make him do a quiz once, and he didn't really want to do it. But then I asked him a question about one of his favourite films, and he got excited. So those interviews have been a little bit like, you kind of prickly, but you pull it back.
Yeah.
And the only one that I was disappointed by, nothing against the man, but only one I was disappointed by was Orlando Bloom.
Oh.
Because I loved Lord of the Rings. And Legolas was like my favourite character. And I was absolutely buzzing to meet him. And I also loved him in Extras with Ricky Gervais, when he plays like a heightened version of himself. But then when I met him, he just seemed a lot like he was the Extras version of himself.
So it wasn't heightened at all?
Kind of just like self-serious. But I think it was, he thought I was trying to take the piss, I think at one point, which I wasn't. And you can, these people don't always know what your intentions are and stuff. So I'm very forgiving. I don't hold any grudges, but he just seemed like a bit like, watch him in the episode of Extras where he's like, he does this a lot. He's like, like very like over I don't want to say self-obsessed, but, kind of just like overly aware of himself.
Yeah.
And I got that feeling a little bit in our interview. But again, could have just been a bad day.
You might have just got him at a bad time.
Could have been a bad time. Don't hold any grudges whatsoever. People who are lovely to you might hate you behind your back. And people who might seem frosty are really not that, they're not that upset. They're just whatever they are.
Just going through
they're
it.
the only two. The rest, fair play to them.
Well, well, just to end off, what would you say is your lasting piece of advice for those watching who think, I want a career just like Jonny. Oh, he's just doing his hat, look. I want a career just like Jonny Nelson. I want to wear a hat just like Jonny. What would you say to those people?
Take it. It'll look better on you than it does on me. I would say if you were stupid enough to want a career just like me and not a slightly more successful version of me, then I would just do what you love. Do what you love. Ignore. Everyone's going to give you advice about how to do X, Y, and Z. And there's that old adage. There's plenty of different ways to peel a potato. What is it?
Possibly.
Is it
Never heard that before in my life, but yeah, we'll go with it.
Peel an apple or something.
Yeah.
To skin. Is it to skin a cat? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I know the sentiment you're meaning. Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of different ways to get from A to B. Lots of different routes. The route I took was very, not to overuse this word, serendipitous. But in many ways, it was kind of inevitable for me. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 10-year plan. I didn't say, I want to be presenting The One Show or Friday Night with Jonathan Nelson by this time. That's my official name, by the way. I just loved movies and I loved sport and I loved presenting and I liked talking to people and learning about people and getting up there. And if you have a passion for whatever it is, gardening or cooking, traveling, languages, culture, archaeology, films, sport, or whatever the hell it is, if you have a passion and you have all those other things, then just do what makes you happy. And if it's working, if it starts to work, then crack on with it, push on with it. There's always gonna be people doing better than you, especially in the age of Instagram and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's very performative. Everything's very, look at the wonderful shiny view of what my life is.
Yeah.
And in this business, that can be very difficult. I used to work with Munya, and he used to sit next to me. He's doing these, lovely guy. He used to do these little things at ITN, and the guy's biggest thing in the country now. You see you're gonna have that if you see those people and you have those experiences, then you're on the right path with the right company. And as long as you're getting satisfaction from the lane that you're in, why change? That's my advice. Just be happy. Remind yourself as often as humanly possible that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Lovely advice.
Fucking do something else. But
yeah, and there we go. Thank you, Jonny. I like that advice. I think it's very important, especially in the social media age. I think it is good to sort of just enjoy what you're doing and not worry about other people. So thank you very much. And look at you, talked for an hour and 15 nearly, talking about such a career.
45 minutes. That was going to be
This is a 45-minute podcast, but that's good. We like it. We like the details. And thank you for your little story. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing where you end up.
On local TV, aren't you?
Yeah.
Put out all the local TV. It'll just be
this will be on Made Television shortly. What was I going to say? Where can people find you if they want to quickly give you a follow on Instagram, wherever you might be, Twitter, TikTok?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram on full Jonny Nelson, which I've had to explain every time I've ever said full Jonny Nelson. It's like the wrestling move, half Nelson. This time it's full Nelson.
But you're the full Jonny Nelson.
Full Jonny Nelson, no H, and that is where you can see 15-second clips of mean things I say about film trailers on Instagram.
Listen, what more could one want in their Instagram feed?
North End content on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jonny. And thank you to those who've listened. I hope you found it useful, insightful, inspiring. And see you again on another podcast. Cheers, Jonny.
Pleasure. Thanks very much for having me. Good luck with it. And good luck to all of you budding young presenters out there. Be happy.
Oh.